made it to Tuesday,
It's Tuesday?
right?
I thought it was Friday. Every day's Friday, baby.
When Johnny's in the house. All right, thanks for joining us for KARE 11 News at noon. You know, today China is seeing a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. In return, the U.S. is now bracing for new tariffs on our items headed overseas. We're covering that impact, plus how the University of Minnesota is reacting to new questions over accusations of anti-Semitism on campus. We'll get to all of that, but first, it's very cool out there.
Yeah, what happened?
I don't know.
It's like 10, what was it, 20 below zero this morning?
was, it
You're
was
waking
bad.
up. It's
Yeah.
better, if you want to call it that, at noon. But yeah, I got to bundle up to get out there. It's actually 4 degrees right now. 0 still in St. Cloud. It has been one of those mornings. And you can thank the fresh snowpack. Any snowpack at all allows that temperature to really bottom out. And last night, everybody went below 0. Twin Cities had a low of 1 below. Still have that wind. Wind has been kind of pesky today. It's been there. It's been consistent. 10 to 12 mile per hour wind, making it feel like minus 12. So it's still 12 below 0 outside, minus 10 in St. Cloud. And that's about it. Yeah, we'll probably ride below around minus 5, minus 6 for a little while here. You can see this is the forecast. 1, 2, 3. The bottom number is the wind chill. We hit 0 at 4 p.m. At 4 p.m. our high, I guess, is 11. And wind chills will be in the single digits in the evening. Now, one thing you'll notice is tonight, overnight, the temperatures don't crash. We're going to be warming up actually during the morning Wednesday, so it won't be as cold Wednesday. That is because we're looking at a chance for snow Wednesday evening. We'll take a look at that in your forecast.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, John. Right now, we're taking a live look at the nation's capital as the country prepares for new price hikes on certain items headed from the U.S. to China. They come in retaliation to a 10% tariff President Trump placed on imports from China. Michelle Beck has a look at the potential impact.
Trump plans to talk with China's president in the next few days, but already this top trading partner has fired back. In the last few hours, China announced a new 15% tariff on American coal and liquefied natural gas. That's on top of a 10% tariff on U.S. products from crude oil to pickup trucks. These measures are set to take effect next Monday, a response to Trump's 10% tariff on all Chinese imports kicking in overnight. And mere minutes after it did, China called out specific U.S. companies like Google. It's now being investigated for alleged antitrust violations.
China hopefully is going to stop sending us fentanyl, and if they're not, the tariffs are going to go substantially higher.
So for now, Trump has put a pause on the tariffs he threatened against Canada and Mexico, saying they've made concessions around border security. Back to you.
Thanks to Michelle for that. An update in President Trump's cabinet picks. Just a couple hours ago, the Senate Finance Committee approved Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination to become the new Health and Human Services Secretary. As his nomination moves to the full Senate, there are Republicans who remain skeptical, most notably Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. In last week's hearings, Cassidy, who's a doctor, disagreed with RFK's stance on vaccines. Still, it's unclear whether any GOP members plan to vote against him. And the Senate Intelligence Committee is taking another vote today on Tulsi Gabbard. She's President Trump's pick to become Director of National Intelligence. After a rocky confirmation hearing, she now has the backing of 2 key Republicans, Senators Susan Collins and James Lankford. Right now, the University of Minnesota is being questioned by the federal government about reports of anti-Semitism. It comes as the president promises to take aggressive action to fight anti-Jewish bias on campuses. Audrey Russo shows us what the investigation looks like.
The University of Minnesota is one of 5 universities nationwide facing this type of federal scrutiny, and it all stems back to the protests and the encampments that happened here last spring as Israeli-Palestinian tensions were escalating. The protests forced several buildings to close, and the university moved some classes online. Now, this investigation is part of an executive order from President Trump. The Education Department accuses the university of tolerating anti-Semitic harassment, quote, driving Jewish life and religious expression underground. This is fresh news for the university, who confirms they just learned about this investigation in the last 24 hours. Administrators in a statement tell us that they are cooperating with the investigation, and they reiterated their commitment to responding to incidents and reports of harassment and anti-Semitic bias. Back to you.
The federal investigation comes as the university's president, Rebecca Cunningham, reaffirms commitment to the school's DEI practices amid federal scrutiny. In a letter to staff and students, she said the university is pausing its DEI expansion and hiring until federal policies are further clarified. The letter follows the Trump administration's executive orders to roll back DEI programming across the country. In Washington, D.C. right now, crews are working to remove the final wreckage from the Potomac River after last week's plane crash. It comes at the same time Americans are growing concerned about flight safety. NBC's Tom Costello is at Reagan National Airport with the latest.
Good day. So the challenge today on the river, just past the runway behind me, is going to continue to be the wind that we have on the river in Washington today. But they need to try to recover as many of the remains of the remaining victims as possible. The D.C. fire chief says so far they have identified 55 remains of the 67 people who were on board both aircraft. So 12 remains still need to be identified. Separately, the priority today is going to be lifting, if they can, the rest of that fuselage out of the water. Specifically, they want to recover the cockpit. Then they're going to wait probably a couple of days before they start to lift the helicopter out of the water. This has been an all-hands-on-deck investigation. Air traffic controllers who were in the tower at the time of the crash have now all been identified, have all been interviewed, and they have been working on the timestamp for the black boxes from both the helicopter and the jet. Apparently, there was no timestamp on the helicopter's black box. That has made this a rather lengthy process. Let's talk quickly about Philadelphia. The black box from that Medevac Learjet is now at the NTSB lab. That's only a cockpit voice recorder. It's not a flight data recorder. Investigators want to hear precisely what was happening in the cockpit just before that jet went into the ground, killing 6 people on board and 1 person on the ground, 24 people injured. That's the final total we have from authorities in Philadelphia. Both investigations still very much in the early stages. Back to you.
In other headlines right now, Minnesota House Republicans are launching a recall effort against DFL lawmakers who have been boycotting the session. The recall petition process officially started in the last 24 hours when the 66 DFL lawmakers once again didn't show up for the House floor session. They're boycotting the session in protest to the GOP's plan to organize with a temporary 1-seat majority. The House GOP is expected to launch a website today, www.minnesotarecall.com. Also at the Capitol, the Minnesota Senate Finance Committee is reviewing federal funding coming to the state as President Trump attempts to freeze funds. That money was set to expire yesterday, but a judge extended the temporary block for another 2 weeks. Today, lawmakers will hear from the Department of Education on how the freeze could affect students, teachers, and public schools. Meanwhile, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is warning federal employees to be cautious about the Trump administration's buyout offer. Many federal employees got an email last week offering pay and benefits through the end of September. But Ellison, along with 11 other state attorney generals, say the benefits aren't guaranteed and said employees should check with union leaders before making any decisions. In about an hour, the Minnesota Attorney General's office will take a deeper dive into the ongoing lawsuit against RealPage Inc. and several landlords across the country, including many here in Minneapolis. They'll explain how the software landlords use to price apartments is monopolizing the markets, and they'll explain why Minnesota has joined the coalition. Minneapolis leaders say they're making progress in reforming the city's police department. In the first semi-annual report from an independent evaluator, it shows the city is on track to meet most of its year-one goals. That includes progress in areas like training, tackling misconduct, complaint backlogs, and policy revisions. The reforms are part of the settlement between the city and the state's Department of Human Rights after George Floyd's murder in 2020.
Being able to bang this stuff out, so much of it I think is the most important thing for a year one in any consent decree. You got to have the policies right first before you can implement anything. And then still before you can implement it, you have to have your training developed.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara went on to say he's fully committed to implementing the required changes. All right, to sports news now. Ahead of their game tonight, the Minnesota Wild is losing one of their players. The NHL is laying down the hammer. Forward Ryan Hartman is suspended for the next 10 games. Yeah, the NHL's decision stems from this play, actually, where Hartman slams an opponent's head into the ice during a face-off. He was ejected from Saturday's match after that hit. It marks the longest suspension in franchise history. The Wild play against the Bruins tonight in Boston. That's at 6. Onto the court now. The Timberwolves have 3 home games in the next 4 days, and they could use a win after dropping their last 2. They kept it close last night against the Kings, but with a chance to win it at the end, Jaden McDaniels lost the ball out of bounds. The Kings hold on and win 116-114. The Wolves host the Bulls tomorrow night, then the Rockets Thursday. And remember, for Saturday's game, you can actually tune in right here on KARE 11. The Wolves' 5-game homestand wraps up with the Portland Trail Blazers. Tip-off is at 7 p.m.